conferencia. ¿Sí? Bueno, buenas tardes a todos los presentes, buenas noches, buenos días, a los que estén virtuales, que nos estamos conectando en este nuevo formato híbrido que tenemos a partir de ya del 2020. Es un placer estar hoy acá en UTEC, en el Instituto Tecnológico Regional Centro Sur, recibiendo una delegación del IHD dentro del marco de lo que es el posgrado en Saneamiento e Ingeniería Sanitaria, que ha comenzado en conjunto con UTEC y IHD desde mayo. Este es el primer encuentro presencial de un ciclo de 5 charlas que van a ser durante este año y el que viene. Por supuesto, agradecer la presencia de todos los que están cursando este posgrado de la Intendencia de Durazno, de la Intendencia de Flores, y bueno, no sé, todos los que están del otro lado, también por estar presentes hoy acá. Les dejamos ahora ya en continuación para que vayan directamente al tema, al doctor Héctor García, que nos va a presentar, con quien viene acompañado en esta oportunidad. Muchas gracias.
Bien, muchas gracias Daniela por la presentación y la introducción. Sí, bueno, tenemos el agrado de estar realizando en esta semana las primeras actividades presenciales, así las denominamos. Este es un curso de posgrado, como mencionó Daniela, que se está haciendo en conjunto entre UTEC y IHD. Es en lo que es el posgrado en Agua y Desarrollo Sostenible, con la primera especialización que estamos haciendo específica en saneamiento e ingeniería sanitaria. El programa lo iniciamos el 23 de mayo pasado, en una modalidad híbrida. Son cursos que se dan con unas 3-4 semanas de duración, de forma online, pero cada 2 cursos tenemos actividades presenciales, donde vienen docentes de nuestro instituto de IHD, y junto con docentes de aquí del ITR de Durazno, bueno, llevamos adelante estas actividades presenciales para reforzar conceptos, para trabajar en grupo, para hacer actividades de campo, como vamos a estar haciendo esta semana. Entonces, en el marco de esas actividades presenciales y para también promover la temática de agua, desarrollo sostenible, y en este caso especial de ingeniería sanitaria y saneamiento, es que también estamos inaugurando un ciclo de charlas magistrales, de conferencias magistrales, donde tomamos la oportunidad de que viene algún experto de DEL a participar de estas actividades presenciales. Entonces, las actividades presenciales las vamos a realizar ahora en esta semana en julio, en septiembre, en diciembre, en marzo y en mayo del año que viene. Entonces, junto con esas actividades presenciales, siempre vamos a estar realizando este tipo de conferencias magistrales. Y nuevamente para poner el tema en la actualidad, que ya lo está, pero para darle un poquito más de relevancia y traer el tema aquí a UTEC, a Durazno y al ITR. Entonces, en el marco de esas conferencias magistrales, tenemos el honor y el placer de presentar a Constantina Berkuyanova, que le decimos Tina, cordialmente en el instituto, y les voy a simplemente mencionar algunos detalles del currículum de Tina para, bueno, introducir un poquito el tema, que mejor que introducir a la persona. Bueno, entonces, Constantina Berkuyanova actualmente es Senior Lecturer en lo que llamamos saneamiento sin colectores, o en inglés Sanitation, en el Instituto de IHD, en el Departamento de Saneamiento y Ingeniería Ambiental. Tina tiene un doctorado en Ingeniería Civil y Ambiental en la Universidad de Southampton en el Reino Unido, pero tiene una vasta experiencia en varias instituciones. Se destaca en Durban, en Sudáfrica, donde está específicamente vinculada con esta temática, que es la provisión de saneamiento en contextos donde no existen conectores. Tina va a explicar el concepto con más detalle, pero esto no se trata de que son alternativas de saneamiento para los más carenciados, sino al contrario. Son las nuevas tendencias en la provisión de saneamiento, que implica ver a una ciudad que no vamos a poder llegar al 100% con colectores, por lo tanto hay que buscar otras alternativas para probar saneamiento. Bueno, y Tina ha desarrollado esas prácticas específicamente en Durban, en la Universidad de Durban en Sudáfrica, por unos 15 años antes de unirse a nuestro instituto hace 2 años. Tradicionalmente, Tina estuvo involucrada con varios proyectos financiados por la Fundación Bill and Melinda Gates, que es la fundación que está también cooperando y financiando este programa. Bueno, este es un resumen del currículum de Constantina, pero bueno, sin más, tengo el agrado, ¿sí?, de presentar a la charla de Constantina, que va a ser relacionada a la provisión de saneamiento, justamente en pequeñas localidades, y algunas innovaciones en este concepto que se conoce en inglés como Citywide Inclusive Sanitation, que es como un saneamiento inclusivo, que la palabra inclusivo tiene varias definiciones, es un poquito distinta en este caso. Muchas gracias por participar. Tía, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Bueno. Buenos dias. My name is Constantina, and I would like to thank the entire UTech team for inviting me here. I would like to apologize that I'm not able to speak in Spanish because my Spanish is very, very limited. So I would present in English, and I hope that it will be clear enough to follow. I'll try to speak slowly, but the colleagues in the room, please let me know to slow down if it's too fast. My talk today is on the provision of sanitation in small cities within the concept of the citywide inclusive sanitation. So what is our reality today? Well, if we see worldwide, we have in the picture, we have some sanitation solutions which are not safe, and about 25% of the worldwide population don't have access to safe sanitation. This also includes those that don't have even this kind of solutions, and they have to practice open defecation. We have other solutions, such as pit latrines or septic tanks, which are so-called on-site sanitation solutions. They are the basic form of sanitation, but they also come with problems because many of them are not safe. Flush type of toilets, which are considered as the gold standard. And they're connected to the sewers, as we know well, and treated all the sewage is treated in wastewater treatment plants. The question is, how do we bridge the gap between these types of sanitation solutions? Because I'm facing a reality where we are not able to provide sanitation which is sewered for everyone. And I'm going to speak why. Well, just to continue further on that, if we have a look at the type of, at the lack of import sanitation, this costs the world about $260 billion US per year. This is due to hospitalization, loss of opportunities, and also many deaths of children under the age of 5. Okay, so let's have a look at the dream for many countries to provide the sewerage connection for the entire countries. Well, unfortunately, this is just a dream for many countries or many regions in particular countries. Why is it not possible? Well, firstly, because it's quite expensive. This is a heavy infrastructure where we have to install plenty of different sewers, networks, which are kilometers and kilometers long. But not only this, we waste a lot of water. And water is becoming a lot more valuable resource than it used to be 50, 60 years ago, or even centuries ago. And this is just a comparison showing you how much of water we consume per household per year. Over 36,000 gallons. So this is also just a calculation. One drop shows 1,000 gallons. But it's about 36,000 gallons per household per year. And if we have a look at on-site sanitation or systems that are non-sewage, we have much less water usage. We have other problems coming with that. Luckily, in Central and South America, there is an abundance of water, but we don't know even how long this is going to continue. And this world map is showing an example of how we have different water-stressed countries and water scarce. So for these countries, this is not possible. The sewer type of sanitation is not possible, even if they had the money to afford it. But this is the reality and the predictions of what is going to be happening in 2030, which is only 8 years from now. With the pace that we are going and the continuous usage of water, we don't know even the regions with abundance of water resources. In 20 years from now, it could be a very similar picture like in these types of countries. I just want to highlight some of the Caribbean regions, for example, are already water stressed. So what comes with in terms of challenges on the conventional urban sanitation? Well, firstly, we are facing rapid urbanization. There is no vision of the whole sanitation value chain. We tend to focus either on toilets, which is the user interface, or on the management, which is the treatment facilities, but we don't tend to usually put the entire chain together. We have low sustainability or replicability of sanitation solutions, especially when we speak about decentralized solutions. There is a lack of holistic approach, integrating equality, and there is a need of local knowledge and community engagement, which is often excluded from the entire planning process. So there are 6 key challenges in a developing cities. There are space, the sewers, funds, water, slums, and the political will. And I think all of you in the room can relate and understand the reality of all these challenges. So if we go to problem 1, is the sewers only approach. And I touched already a little bit on this. Well, this is a plant on the top of already what I mentioned about the water scarcity and how expensive this infrastructure is. We can see conventional wastewater sitting nicely incorporated in a city. However,
if we see this context, what we see is that in this densely built area, it's not possible to build a sewer type of system. So what solutions are we facing? And we integrate the approach of having sewer systems here and having no sewer systems here. And just to I'm sure that everybody is familiar, but what is the meaning of decentralization? Well, if we have a centralized wastewater treatment plant, for example, we have everything is going into one and the same plant, and all these are the sewer connections. If we have a partially centralized, decentralized system, we can have two smaller wastewater treatment plants, or three, depending how big the area is. And when we speak about fully decentralized, we can see these little pockets where we can have small systems that are providing the treatment on site. When we speak about decentralized systems, we use many different terms. And these are just listed here: on-site sanitation systems, community scale, modular, nature-based sanitation systems, hybrid systems, unconventional. But this also shows you how we are even not aligned with the terms that we're using. We have so many terms, and maybe you are using one term, I would use another term. We mean exactly the same thing, but we speak in different languages. Problem number 2, we often consider that sanitation means toilets only. This is related to the entirety of the sanitation service chain. Well, what is safely managed sanitation? This is the use of improved facilities which are not shared with other households and where excreta are safely disposed in situ or transported and treated off-site. This is what is meant by safely managed sanitation, and this is by GMP report. What is the meaning? But where I'm going with this, just wanted to give you an example. This is from India, but it could be replicated in many other contexts. So there was a significant investment, and 110 million toilets were built. And yet there were 0 sludge treatment facilities. So what do? We provide the toilets, we do the investment, but we don't deal with the problem because they don't have access to safely managed sanitation. And when we speak about this, we need to think about the environmental health. The urban environment has direct impact on urban and rural public health. And 80% of all the wastewater in the world is untreated globally. And I'm going to ask you the question, what happens if we do have sewers? If we have the toilets, if we have the sewers, but we don't have appropriate wastewater treatment plants, where does the waste go? Does this picture ring a bell? This is from the UK, by the way. I just took it off the internet, but I'm sure that we can all relate to the same problem, right? Problem number 3. When we focus on solutions for sanitation, we often try to see what we can do, what we can solve first, what is the easiest to solve, and then we can move on after that and try to solve the other problems. But what happens is that more often is the most challenging problems are related to the poor, to the provision of sanitation systems and services to the poor. So often we tend to leave them behind. And this is just a comparison of where the money goes in terms of subsidies that reach poor and rich, wealthier communities in terms of provision of subsidies. So you can see what are the disparities. And I'm just going to skip this graph. So in this picture, I just wanted to show quickly what is our understanding of equality versus justice versus equity. And we often tend to put them with the same meaning, but they don't mean the same thing. Because when we speak about equality, we often treat everyone with the same provision. And this is just a very simplified version, but you can understand that if we're speaking about poor communities that are already disadvantaged, and we provide them with the same solutions as those that are already having advantages, we are not solving their problems. Okay? And equity means that everyone gets the support they need. So that's something that we really need to consider when we look at options of provisions for sanitation in a citywide approach. So what is the solution? Well, let me touch on what a citywide inclusive sanitation is. We can look at different options in an urban context where we can have highly densely populated areas. Some of them could be slum areas. We can have those areas that are not so densely populated. They are serviced by the sewers. But what do we do and how do we integrate both approaches? So then we know that we are dealing with all the waste that has been generated, not with a part of it. So the concept of the citywide inclusive sanitation is a relatively new thing. It started only in 2016, the talk about citywide inclusive sanitation planning. And then in 2017, there will be a call for action in Stockholm Water Week, etc., etc. And in 2020, there was a publication about citywide inclusive sanitation. It is something relatively new, but it's the approach that the World Bank has adopted, and the most of the donor organizations are looking into adopting into their strategies. So the definition of the citywide inclusive sanitation is an approach to urban sanitation where all members of the city are equitable, have equitable access to adequate and affordable improved sanitation services to appropriate systems of all scales, including sewer and non-sewer, without any contamination to the environment along the entire sanitation service chain. This is one of the definitions, and I just want to make sure that you understand that there are a number of what we're dealing in a modern world, but that's extracted from Eva, who have been working really a lot on this part. A question is, do the concept of the citywide inclusive sanitation align with the SDG framework? And here we can see some examples. The answer is yes. And then we can see that citywide inclusive sanitation fits into 6.2, 6.3, and also is related to different sanitation development goals. SDG 3, 5, gender equality, sustainable cities 11, reduce inequalities 10, resource recovery, circular waste economy. So you can see that this concept is not looking only to address the sanitation challenges, but other challenges that we are facing in our modern society. So how to plan for citywide inclusive sanitation? This is a very difficult question, and it's definitely not easy. We need to have a really comprehensive planning, because if we don't do that, then we're missing the point or missing one of the elements, and then it's not a citywide, or we are not enabling the entirety of the process. So we need to involve all the different stakeholders, from users to providers to decision makers. We need to make sure that everybody participates in this decision-making process. We spoke about equity, and we need to always consider this principle when we make decisions. We need to consider the local knowledge. We have been speaking often about having experts from one type of setting and region going to advise in a very different setting what decisions must be made. But we need to definitely learn from the local experts. It's a very, very important aspect. We need to consider all technological aspects, and they're continuously evolving. I have a couple of slides to show you some recent innovations to make an inclusive decision and to have spatial and temporal considerations. These are some, for those of you that might be interested, there are existing planning methods that are fitting within the citywide inclusive sanitation. And probably you can have a look later. They're also published by ERAG. So the key messages, this is not my last slide, I just want to mention, but I just wanted to sum up some of the key messages about the citywide inclusive sanitation. The conventional urban sanitation approaches have their issues. However, the citywide inclusive sanitation is a shift paradigm, and then it offers a solution of some of these challenges that we mentioned. There are 6 key principles, and there is a systematic approach that is looking at the contextual appropriation of the solutions that we offer. And of course, what we touched on, there is a need of comprehensive planning. So when we go back to this slide again, how do we bridge the gap? We touched a little bit how we can look at some considerations. And now I wanted to share with you some other aspects regarding the non-sewage sanitation parts of the decentralized sanitation. The reinvented toilets or non-sewage sanitation. Well, these are new generation systems that have been evolving in the last 15 years. So they have a couple of principles. I'll touch on the timeline, how it started, but they're looking at the elimination of the pathogens from the human waste completely, how to recover valuable resources such as energy, clean water. They need to operate completely off the grid, meaning that we want them to be disconnected from the sewer network, from the water supply, and from the electricity provision. Low life cycle costs, and of course, they need to be scalable and modular. So we're speaking about a household level to a small community level. And these are just examples. We have been working on different aspects with some of the partners. Some of them developed the prototypes and they've been tested in Durban. Some of them could be retrofitted. Yeah, this is showing one example of a completely dry system where the waste is treated on the site. So this is just the timeline on how the invented toilet journey started. And there was a call in 2011 with different partners being involved in the development of different prototypes. And eventually we ended up having standards that are written for the certification and the performance management of some of these systems. What are these standards? Well, we have 2 or 3 different standards that are looking at the different parts of the sanitation service chain. Some of them are looking at these invented toilets, which is the ISO 30500. We have another standard, which is ISO 31800, which is looking at the performance of the treatment systems at a much larger scale. And we have some other related standards. So what I mean with this is that, yes, we can have prototypes, we can have scientific research, we can do a lot, but eventually we need to go to a scale up. And the meaning of this standard is that they're providing the next step of how we can bring these prototypes to scale. And this picture here is showing that some of these implementations are opening a space, a new market space for non-soil sanitations. Obviously, it depends where they're based, but we can see that in some regions, this market space opportunities are much higher. Some of these solutions are included into the new compendium of sanitation technologies in the wider Caribbean region. You can have a look there. And I wanted to end with one of the aspects that we considered at the beginning. We don't only need to have different solutions and technologies, but we also need to have a good capacity of experts. And that's why we have this program connected to the Global Sanitation Graduate School, running here for the first time in the continent at UTech. What is the Global Sanitation Graduate School? Well, there are over 50 partners. You can see how they're distributed. The overall aim is to achieve over 100 academic partners in different organizations and universities around the world. And the ambition is by 2030 to have as a minimum 10,000 graduates. The good thing about this program is that it's looking at one curriculum. So the same as what some of you are the students in the first program here at UTech. But the good thing is that you're following a very similar curriculum than any of the other 42 universities around the world. There are more than 250 teachers, 600 master students that are currently engaged into these programs, and we have over 40% women. The ambition is to have at least 50% female representation. And here you can see in the last summit in Montevideo this year, you can see Hector presenting. So this summit has been very important, firstly to establish the program here in Uruguay, but secondly to connect with different partners in the Central and the South American region. And these potential partners could be the next universities that can deliver the same program. So with this, I'm going to end my talk and give you something to think about. can we, instead of thinking about human waste as a waste, we actually start thinking about human waste as a valuable resource? Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Tina, por la presentación. Entonces ahora abrimos la sesión tanto aquí en el público como a la gente que nos está siguiendo con la transmisión en simultáneo por el canal de YouTube. Si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor que la escriban en el chat, en español o en inglés o en el idioma que quieran, y de esa forma se la transmitiremos a Tina. Tal vez esperamos un minutito para ver si hay preguntas. No tienen, si quieren estoy pensando, alguna duda, alguna consulta. Veníamos en el viaje desde Montevideo y pasamos por todas las depuradoras, que no hay depuradoras. Entonces era el ejemplo era un buen ejemplo de lo que veníamos viendo en el viaje, que en Durazno afortunadamente tenemos una depuradora, entonces no era el caso. Pero ahí pueden verlo en cualquier ciudad, el concepto que tiene presentado de que no se va a llegar a cobertura 100% con colectores. Entonces básicamente el concepto es, es pensar de otra forma, con otras alternativas, ¿no? Y viendo que hay un recurso en lo que estamos desechando. Y ese es un poquito el concepto y la innovación.
Pregunta en el chat, ¿cómo se aplicaría en Uruguay?
Para Tina. Tina, so one question in the chat, how do you think application in Uruguay? All yours. ¿Realizamos traducción? ¿Se aprecia traducción?
Look, as I mentioned, everything needs to be conceptualized locally. So in Uruguay, my understanding is that quite a large, especially in Montevideo, quite a large area is already serviced by the sewer. But the question is, what about those communities that are not? As I presented, there are possibilities. I mean, the water is still abundant, seemingly. So it is possible to look at solutions that are more decentralized, but again, water-based, flushing system. So it doesn't mean that it needs to be a completely new system that nobody understands how it works. That's why it is important to engage the local community and to understand. So, like in Uruguay and anywhere else, it is possible to be applicable, but everybody needs to be involved. There is a need to do research, for example. That's the first step, to do a feasibility study. If there is a need of provision for additional sanitation solutions, where are they not provided? What problems come with that? Is there environmental health problems? Are there any public health problems? Then the next step is to see what possible solutions could be provided and how they can be incorporated in the already existing solutions. nobody says that now everybody has to drop the sewer types of systems and start running after something new. And that was not the focus. I was just trying to give a perspective that maybe what we always chase, it's not always the most sustainable solution. But yeah, it is applicable. It is possible to look at those areas that are not served with a sustainable type of sanitation provisions, and what would be the most appropriate solutions for the local communities, for those that are going to use these systems. What would be the economical aspect, how expensive it's going to be, and how this could be incorporated with already existing solutions. So I think these are things that need to be considered.
¿Sí? ¿No? Muy bien, entonces si no hay más preguntas, damos por finalizada la conferencia. Muchas gracias, Tina. Thank you very much. So, we're finished.
Muchas gracias.